Hello everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining us this Saturday morning. We are really glad to be back after a short break at AWS User Group Nashik. Today we will be exploring the AWS services, basic AWS services, where you can deploy your website, and we are also going to explore a tool which is used to manage infrastructure as code, which is known as HashiCorp TerraForm. So today our speaker will be guiding you through step-by-step process to host your website in very easy manner, but a very proper in best practice way, which can be useful in your side projects, or if you want to host your personal website, that is gonna be helpful for you. Without wasting much time, I'll invite our speaker to the stage. I'll just add him. Hello. Hey, hi, Nasir.
Hi
Uh,
Abhishek.
so, uh, so we will just start with a round of introduction, and once we have that, we can immediately start the session. So yeah, all yours.
Hi everyone, my name is Nasi. I go by CloudChamp on YouTube. I create content on DevOps and I work as a freelance DevOps engineer. In this session we are going to be doing a project where we will be creating a website on AWS and this will be all automated through Terraform, which is an infrastructure as code tool. So Terraform is used a lot in DevOps. This is why I have this project here because most of you might already be aware about how to create things in the console, but we are going to do it programmatically, writing the code in this session. I'll show you all the ways how to use documentation and how all things work from scratch. So this is going to be an exciting project, and I'm very glad to do this with you. Mute.
Okay, thank you so much, Nasi, for the introduction. And I think yeah, we can start with without any further ado. I'll drop from the stage now, and you can present your screen and start with the session.
All right. Okay. So I hope now my screen is visible, right?
Yes, it is visible. You
Okay.
can continue now.
So we are going to be creating a website, as I said. This website, you can create it for yourself as a portfolio. You can start selling your services if you're a freelancer. If you're a student, you can create your own resume or anything you want. It's up to you. I'm going to show you how to create it. The HTML code or anything you want to upload, it's your take. So for this project, we will be requiring an AWS account because we are doing this on AWS. So we require an AWS account. Along with this, we also need to have Terraform installed. So I have Terraform installed in my machine. And to show you that, I'm going to run the command, which is terraform dash dash version. This command tells me that Terraform is installed. If you don't have Terraform installed, you can always go to the official page, which is Terraform downloads. And depending on your uh, operating system, either it is Mac OS or Windows or Linux, you can go ahead and install it. After you install it, you can run the Terraform version command and check if it is installed. So throughout the project, we are going to be using Terraform and you need to have this installed. Along with this, you also require a few more things like AWS CLI because we have AWS account, but for us to use the AWS through command line, we need to have a tool named as AWS CLI, which you can also install from AWS documentation. So if I run AWS CLI download, you can go to this page. And to make things easy, I have all this documented along with all the links in this documentation, which I will be sharing or which Abhishek will be sharing in the description very soon. So you require an account, you need to have Terraform installed, you also need to have AWS CLI. Here's the link for it. So depending on your OS again, you can download your CLI. Next, once you have this, the last thing you will need is the VS Code where we are going to write our code. So I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code. You can use any text editor or code editor you want. So to start this project, I'm going to be creating a folder in my local machine. So let's create a folder with the name as AWS UG Nashik. I'll go inside this folder and open this up in my VS Code. Okay, so I have this folder open in my VS Code and we can start writing our Terraform code to create the website. Now in this VS Code, if I want to first start working with my Terraform, Terraform should know which account I am connected to. And for that, we will require keys or access keys. So let me show you how you can create keys. So I'll go to security credentials here. In this security credentials, you need to go to the section where you can create keys here on this side. So if I scroll down, you can see access keys. Use access keys to send programmatic calls to AWS for CLI, toolkit, PowerShell, all this. So if we need these keys, let's click on create access key. I'm going to say, yes, I understand. Make sure you don't expose your keys. I'm going to be deleting these keys after this session. So make sure you don't expose it. And if it exposed, you can always rotate it or delete it. So now where are we going to use this keys? We can run the command which is AWS configure to make sure our CLI is connected with the AWS account. So I'll say AWS configure, put my access key here, then copy my secret access key, paste it here, choose the region. I'm going to say US-East-1 and the output format as JSON. Now that is done. To confirm, you can run the command AWS IAM list dash users. This command is to check how many users you have in your account, and if it gives you the right output, which means your AWS CLI is configured. So now our AWS is connected with our CLI. We are ready to start writing our Terraform code. So I'm going to go into my VS Code. Whenever you start working with Terraform on a particular cloud, be it be AWS or Azure or any other cloud, you need to define it as a provider. So I'm going to create a file named as provider.tf. And throughout the project, we will be using documentation to help you go through or troubleshoot issues if you have any issues. So I'll go to Terraform documentation, where I will search for Terraform AWS provider. So this is the page for Terraform AWS provider. Terraform has a lot of different providers. We are using AWS, so we will be using this particular code. So you can see here there's a button says use provider. Let's click on this and you got this code. So I'm going to copy this code here and paste it simply in my provider.tf file. In this code, you can see there are two blocks. One is the Terraform block and second is the provider block. This is HCL code or HCL syntax. It stands for HashiCorp configuration language, and we write Terraform code in HCL language. So if you're not sure about it, you can always watch my video on how to write HCL code, where I've explained all about blocks, arguments, and all these things. Now, if you come across this, in this block, provider block, it's asking you to put configuration options, right? So what are these configuration options? If you go to this documentation and scroll down, inside the configuration, you can put your region where you want to work. You can also put your access keys and secret access keys, but this is not the best practice. You can see Terraform is also saying you a warning that hard-coded credentials are not recommended in any Terraform configuration. This is why we are not putting our keys here, and we did it using the AWS configure command. So I'm going to copy, I'm going to add the region where I want this to be created. So I'll say region is going to be US-East-1. So now we have set up provider. To start out, I'm going to run a command which is terraform init. This is the first command you need to run to install all things necessary to run this provider in our Terraform. So it's installing provider plugins, and very soon we will have a folder which will have all the details or information necessary to work with AWS provider. You can see this is the folder created, which is .terraform, and it has some files in it. You don't need to touch this. You only need to edit and change the .tf files that you will be creating. Now that the Terraform has been successfully initialized, we are ready to start creating our uh, AWS resources. So in AWS, there are different ways to create websites. You can create websites on EC2 servers. You can create on light sail, amplify, any way you want. But we are going to be going through an easy way, which is using S3 bucket. In S3, you have a option to enable static website hosting, where you can upload your files and create your own website, which is going to be a static website. So I'll show you how to do that all through Terraform. So I'm going to create a new file named it main.tf. In this file, let's create an S3 bucket. So whenever you want to create a bucket or any AWS resource, you can use Terraform documentation. Let me show you how. So I'll go to my browser and search for Terraform S3 bucket. And this is the resource that we want to use. So here is the code that I can simply copy and paste. But remember one thing, whenever you create an S3 bucket, the name of the bucket should always be very unique. If I try to use this and if the name is taken already, I will get an error. So let's use a random name that is unique. So I'll say AWS UG website 2024. Hopefully this name is not taken, so we'll try to use this. And to make things more good or more using best practices, I will use variables in this code. So I'll create another file named it variables.tf. So instead of writing our names or values directly, we will put this through variable. So I'm going to remove this, and inside this I will create a variable with the name bucket name, and the value is this. So now instead of putting the name directly, I'm going to be using the variable which is var.bucket name. We don't need this because this is optional. Tags are optional in AWS. So now we have a resource with the name as AWS UG website 2024. Let's try to run and see if it is actually creating it or not. So in Terraform, there are different commands. If you're not aware about it, you can simply run Terraform and then you'll see common commands that we are going to be using throughout this session. So the commands are init that we already ran to make sure that it's ready to start writing code. Then you can run the validate command to check if your configuration is valid, the syntax is valid or not. You can run plan command to check what is going to be created, apply to actually create it, and then destroy to destroy it. So I'm going to say Terraform validate to see if everything is okay. So when I run Terraform validate command, it says configuration is valid because my syntax is okay. If by chance I missed this closing braces and I try to run Terraform validate again, it will give me an error saying that there's no closing brace. So this is how Terraform validate helps you with proper syntax in Terraform. So let's run it again and then see if it is valid. So it is valid, and I'm going to run Terraform plan to see what is actually going to be created. According to this configuration, it should create an S3 bucket. So when I run Terraform plan, it says one thing to be created, which is our website, and you can also see uh, the information about it. Now let's run Terraform apply to actually create it. But before I do that, let me show you that I don't have any buckets in my account now. So there are no buckets uh, in my account, and I will very soon have a bucket after I run the Terraform apply command. So if there's no bucket, let's run Terraform apply hyphen. Okay, let's type Terraform apply, and then it will show me the plan once more and ask me to enter a value. If it is yes, it will go ahead and create it. So I'll say yes, and very soon we will have a bucket in our console. So it's creating, and now it's created after 5 seconds. We have a bucket. Let's refresh this, and you can see there's a bucket created with the name AWS UG website 2024. Now in this bucket, there are few things that we need to configure in order to create our website. So we need to make the bucket public. We need to have this settings enabled as well, which is a static website hosting setting. And we also need to give more permissions to our bucket in order to have our website ready. So this is how you create a website. This is how you create a S3 bucket in AWS using Terraform. To change ownership, which is required to create our website, I'll go to the Terraform documentation again. And in this, I'm going to search for bucket ownership. This code. We require this to make sure that everything inside this bucket is owned by the bucket owner itself. So I'll copy this and paste it here. The one thing I need to change is to change the reference that is used inside this code. So this particular block is using bucket s3 bucket.example.id. So the name is same, but let's change the name to my bucket rather than just example. And I'll change the same here as well. So it's going to be my bucket.id. Now this is done. Along with this, we also need to have uh, ACLs and make this bucket public. So to do that, there's another resource which I have noted down here in my documentation. So we have done this, all of this, which is creating our keys, AWS configure, setting a provider, initializing it, then creating a bucket. This is where we are right now. So we have set up bucket ownership to the owner itself, and now we need to make the bucket public and also add ACL. So this is the resource you need to look for: AWS S3 bucket public access block. Right now, by default, the bucket is private, and we need to make it public. So you can see here the bucket is private. There's public access blocked. So we need to enable that and make it public. This is the resource we are trying to use. In this code here, everything is set to true because this is private and we need to change it to false. So I'll copy this, paste it here, reference my bucket, which is AWS S3 bucket dot my bucket dot id, and change this all to false because we want to make this bucket public. All right. Once I do this, the next step is going to be enable public access read to the ACL objects as well. So let's do that too. The name of the resource is AWS S3 bucket ACL. And this is where you can find the code. So if you see here, this is similar to what we added right now, making the public bucket public, which is by setting all these values as false. Once you do that, you need to just copy this part, which is AWS S3 bucket ACL, and I'll paste it here. If you try to look at it, this particular block says depends on the previous resources that we created. So this S3 bucket ACL resource is dependent on the uh, ownership and the bucket public access resource. Once I do this, let's save it and just see if what changes are made on our bucket. So I'm going to run Terraform apply again. And to avoid typing yes all the time, we can simply use auto approve parameters. So I'll say Terraform apply -auto -approve. And this will start. Okay, so I got an error saying example has not been declared. This is true because we haven't changed our bucket reference on line 30. So I'll change this to my bucket dot id. Let's save this and run it again. Now this time we don't have any errors, and hopefully very soon we will have all these changes, which is making our bucket public and giving permissions to the owner. So I got an error again. It says bucket already exists. So I need to first delete everything and then do it again. So I'll say Terraform destroy -auto -approve. Okay, let's run Terraform apply again, and this time with the bucket will be created with all these settings. So four things are going to be added. The bucket is creating, setting up ownership, making it public, and all that. So yeah, we have the bucket ready now. Let's refresh this page. You can see now it says block all public access is set to off, which means this is now public, and we are ready to set up our website. To set up our website, we need to have another resource, which is website configuration here. And in this, you can see it's asking you to put index.html and error.html, the two files that will be shown on your website. Index when someone comes to your website, and if there's an issue, the user should see error.html as well. So we will also have to add this files inside our code so that S3 buckets is like it's stored inside the S3 bucket. So you can also see that in the documentation here. I have this documentation for you. In case you face any issues, you can go through this. So we have all the settings enabled now. It's all public. The bucket is public, and we need to enable the static website hosting, which is not enabled here. If you check in the properties section, it is still disabled. So we need to do this. We can either do this through console here, but everything is through Terraform. So we will add a code to enable that inside our Terraform code here. So let's do that. But as I said, we also need to have index.html and error.html. So I'll create two files here, index.html and then error.html. So this index.html is going to be shown on the website error whenever there's an issue, and I want this to be customized according to me. For you, you can create your own kind of website. If you see an example here, this person has a website created with their information, and you can either create a similar website like this, or if you're creating something else, you can put your own code. And for this, I'm going to be using ChatGPT because I don't write HTML code much. And I also show you how you can use ChatGPT in your own daily use. So we'll add a prompt asking ChatGPT to give you index.html for your portfolio website. So I'll say create index.html for my portfolio website. And I'll give some information. I'm a DevOps engineer with certifications and 5 years experience. Okay, let's see what ChatGPT gives us. So this is the code we are going to be using. As I said, you can customize it to your as your own, or you can also write your own code if you want it that way. So I'll be using this code inside my index.html, and I will also ask ChatGPT to create an error.html for me. So this is what I want, and I'm going to copy this, put it in my index.html. So now this index.html is a file that we also need to be pushed or put inside our S3 bucket. So we need to create an object which will put this file or an object inside our S3 bucket. Let's also get the code for error.html. Okay, so we have a simple message saying error page not found whenever someone goes to a path which is not present in our website. So let's copy this and paste it inside error.html here. All right. So we have a bucket ready, we have our settings ready. We only need to enable S3 website hosting, and we need to push this index.html and error.html on our bucket. Right now our bucket don't have any objects, it's 0 here. So we need to upload our files as well. I can upload the files right from here in my console, but again, we are not doing this through console, we are going to be doing this through Terraform. And in Terraform, if you want to push an object, you have a resource for that as well. So that this is the resource, which is AWS S3 bucket object. And I'm going to copy this code here. So let's copy this and go back to main.df. I'll be uploading index and error both. So let's paste it here. The name of this, I'm going to change it to index. The bucket is already created in the code, so I'm going to just reference that, which is AWS S3 mybucket.id. The key is the name of the object, which is index.html, and the path is uh, where is this actually stored. So it has to be just index. Sorry, it has to be in double quotes because this is a string. And the path of the file is where is this file actually stored. So as this file is inside the same directory, which is AWS UG Nashik, I will use the same name as index because Terraform will know where to get this file. So it's in the same folder. If I do ls, you can see all of these are in the same folder. Index, error, main.df, everything is in the same. So it's okay, we can use this. Now we don't actually require this. So Terraform here says AWS S3 bucket object resource is deprecated and it will be removed. Right now you can still use it, but according to this, it's saying that it is deprecated and you can start using S3 object instead of S3 bucket object. So which is this one? Let's try to use the new one because we have to follow the best practice. So it's actually the same. You just need to change the bucket resource name. So instead of using bucket, I'll just say object. And this is why you should be using documentation to make sure that you are using everything which is updated and best practice according to documentation itself. Now, along with this, we also have to add a type, as you can see here, the content type, like what is this file actually? And we also need to set the access control list to public to make it public. So I'll say ACL is going to be public hyphen read, and the type is text slash HTML because this is an HTML file. Similar to this, I'll also do the same for my error.html file too. So let's just copy this and paste it. I'll change the name to error and also the name here for the key. The source is also error.html inside the same folder. So this is error.html now. So once I run this, these two objects should be inside my bucket. Let's see. So if I run Terraform plan command now, according to the changes we have made, it should tell us that two objects should be added. So two objects are going to be added, which are the index.html and error.html file. So let's do that. I'll say Terraform apply hyphen auto hyphen approve. And very soon we will have objects uploaded here in our bucket. So it's done. Let's refresh this. And we have two objects ready, index and error. Now that we have these two, we can enable static website hosting setting and also use these files for our website. So to do that, I'm going to go back to my Terraform documentation. Inside this documentation, there's a resource which is website bucket configuration. If you see this, this is asking you to put the index.html and also the error.html code. So let's use this code and paste it in our VS Code. Now, the name of the file is similar, so I'm not going to change that. I'll just change the reference of my bucket because the bucket name is mybucket.id, and we don't need. Uh, we also don't need extra things that are there, so we don't require routing rules. Okay. Once I do this, AWS S3 bucket website configuration will be enabled and it will start using index.html for index document and error.html for error document. So let's see now. If you see here in the property section, the website hosting is still disabled. And once this website is created, you can access your website on S3 endpoint. So you get an endpoint from S3 bucket that you can use and paste it on websites on web browser to start accessing your website. Although you can also connect this with your domain name. If you have domain name, you can create a DNS record, a CNAME record to map your S3 endpoint with your domain name. So let's go ahead and run Terraform apply now that we have added this website configuration setting. So I'll say Terraform apply hyphen auto hyphen approve. Okay, so it says one thing to add, which is the website configuration we did now, and it's done. Let's refresh the page. So all this code, I'll be putting this on GitHub for you to use it, so that if you want to try this on yourself, you can start using it. So you can see static website hosting is now enabled, and we also have a website endpoint which we can use. So let's see if our website is ready or not. So when I click on this, it gives me this endpoint, and we have our website ready, which is the code that I got from my ChatGPT, and it looks good. You can also you can also add more pages to this. It depends on how you want to customize it. Right now, we have a portfolio website of John Doe, which is a DevOps engineer, 5 years experience, all the certifications and experience here as well. So this is how you create static website hosting on S3 bucket using Terraform. Terraform is an infrastructure as code. Once you know how to do this, you can also customize more things. You can create your own VPC networks, your servers, and more things. In Terraform, when you do more things, you can have modules created to separate different resources. Let's say you have an AWS RDS database, you can have a separate module for it. Right now, we only had a single service, which is S3 bucket. So we did all of that in main.tf. But when you have more advanced code, you can customize it according to Terraform best practices. You can also store this Terraform state, which has all information about what is created through Terraform. You can put this on remote state backends like S3 buckets as well. So this is how you can do it. I want you to try this out with your own code. For now, we have used ChatGPT to create our code, and this is what we have here. So it's all from ChatGPT. For this, if you want to try this out, we also have a GitHub repo created. So I'll show you the GitHub repo as well if you want to try this out later on. So this is my GitHub account. In the repository section, you can scroll down, and this is the Terraform AWS project. Sorry, this is not the one. Yeah, this is the one. Simple DevOps project to practice Terraform with AWS to create a static website on S3. So you can feel free to get this code, fork the repository, start using it. It has the index.html as well, which is different than what we have used here because I wanted to show you how to do it using ChatGPT. But you can feel free to use this or your own code. So, and it also has the code for main.tf. We have an outputs.tf created as well to get the website endpoint right on the terminal rather than going and getting it from the console. So you can also have outputs to get the information in your terminal while using Terraform. So this was our project for today. I hope that you have understood everything that we have gone through in this session. If you have any issues, any questions, any doubts, you can feel free to put that in the comment section or also connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any questions as such. I hope this project was informative. Coming
Yep.
back to Stuttgart.
Thank Thank you so much, Nasi. That was a really great demonstration of setting up a website. Also, we do have one question from our subscriber. I'll just put it in on the screen. You can see it now. So the question is: are there any best practices which we can follow in terms of project structure when the project gets complex? Like currently, this is a simple website, but if we have a full-fledged website and different ends, I think what they mean is if we have different environments like dev, prod, uh, and how we can segregate our project structure with best practices using the Terraform.
So yeah, this is actually a very simple project, and this was just to
Yeah.
get around Terraform, how to start using it with AWS. But if you have a complex project or if you have different environments, you can obviously enhance it. So one way is to use modules, which are module blocks of how you want to separate different resources rather than creating it them in a single page. If you create them in a single page, there will be thousands of lines and it will be very difficult for troubleshooting. Apart from
Right.
this, let's say there are different environments. You can also have environment variables specific to particular environment. Let's say there's a staging where you want to use just T2 micro, but there's production where you want to use T2 large. So you can have different environment variables, but the same Terraform code. So when you run the apply command, you can specify, okay, for staging, I want to use this variable code. For production, I want to use this variable file. right?
Okay. Okay. If at all you have build something like that and you have a repository for the same, we can simply provide that in the description as well, so that for advanced audience who already has some basic understanding of Terraform, they can refer it and go from there. So yeah, I think that's it. And apart from that, one question from my side as well, like if someone wants to automate this process, now what we did in this particular session is we have created a Terraform file and we have created the infrastructure, and we from command line itself we were actually deploying it, right? Now let's say I am totally comfortable with this kind of project structure now, and let's say I'm deploying my personal website, but I want to maintain it as a repository in GitHub or any version control system, and I want to automate the process so that if I make any edits to the code, I should not, be needed to, write commands and apply it from my local machine. It should be, totally from the automation point of view. So, what will be the best way to start that process, and what is your experience around that?
This is actually something we can do with Terraform, because in Terraform you
Okay,
write code for the infrastructure. So this code can also be stored on repositories. It could be GitHub, GitLab, AWS code commit, anything. And then when you put this on repositories, you can enable CI/CD for it. Let's say we have this on
okay,
code commit on AWS. We can create a
okay,
code pipeline, CI/CD code pipeline, where we can say whenever I make a change on Terraform, the apply command should run automatically, or we can have different stages. I actually have a project video across this, and also
okay,
a document. So you can create a CI/CD pipeline file where you say whenever there's a push made on the main branch, this command should run, and then this command should run. But make sure that whenever you push your code, never push your state files, never push your environment file which will have credentials or passwords. That is something you should remember. But obviously, you can automate this process rather than running the commands manually. This is something we do in production as well. So we have our
okay, right.
CI/CD setting for Terraform. This is only because it is infrastructure as code. If it was not code, this would not be possible.
Yeah, correct. Thank you for that. We have one more question, not related to this session per se, but you might get this a lot since you are delivering sessions on multiple. So the question is, as I am a fresher and I'm starting my career as a cloud developer, then what should I learn first? Can you provide a roadmap?
Right. So this is actually a very, very common question that I get
Yeah,
almost every day. I'd say if you want to become a cloud developer, get started with any cloud first thing. So AWS has their own free trainings on Reskill,
yeah,
Rebuilder. There's also a cloud quest that you can use to play games and learn AWS. Get done with any good cloud, get a certification in it, then start with automation tools like CloudFormation, like Terraform. Also have some good understanding on Linux, because as you have seen throughout this project, we were using Terminal. So you also need to have some understanding or experience with Linux. And then while you go through this, you will come across and understand what more things you will require. So cloud is important, networking is important, Linux is important, and one good programming language is all you need to get started.
yeah. I agree to that. I think
Although I have
this
a
answers.
video, a full-fledged video with a PDF document that has all the resources that you can use if you want to also check resources and all that.
Yep, I think what we will do is we'll compile all these list of resources which you have, and of course your YouTube channel is the content source for all cloud, DevOps, CI/CD, everything. Our subscribers can get different kind of project there. So, but yeah, still I'll put everything in the description for our audience which is tuning in live today. But if someone is watching this video later point of in time, so that they can also get help from the description and whatever resources we'll put, so we'll definitely do that after this session. And I think yeah, these are the only questions we had. And yep, I think we are good to wrap up then. Again, thank you so much, Naseem, for your time today. And this was really good session, informative session for me and our audience as well. And yeah, do subscribe for his YouTube channel. His name of his handle on YouTube is Cloud Chan, where Nasi has hands-on videos. There are a lot of them, and you name it, any technology in DevOps domain, you will get all the resources there. It's one stop shop. So yeah, definitely visit his YouTube channel. I'll put it in the description as well. And yeah, I think we can wrap this up. So thank you so much, Masi, once again, and thank you to everyone who joined in. So yeah, have a
Thank
good
you.
day. Thank you so much.